The most powerful man in the world chose not to become corrupt. So what's your excuse? Marcus Aurelius was, in practical terms, the highest authority on earth at the time. Emperor of Rome, no boss above him, no ethics committee, no public opinion dragging him online. He was the system. And here's the part that matters. He didn't use that power to drown in excess or cruelty, even though he easily could have. He chose to try to be a decent human being, not perfect, decent. By the way, one quick thing. If this kind of reflection makes you think a little, go ahead and like the video and subscribe to the channel. That really helps the project grow and you won't miss the next videos. Going back to it, now look at your own daily battles. Sometimes the big moral struggle is choosing discipline over convenience, and that already feels heavy. No empire on your shoulders, no wars, no millions depending on your decisions. Marcus had what we would call unlimited access. Ego, luxury, authority, all available. Yet instead of leaning into indulgence, he wrote private reflections to keep himself grounded. While today people post inspirational quotes for visibility, he wrote in isolation so he wouldn't lose himself. That challenges the common excuse that the environment forces you or power inevitably corrupts. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. The difference shows up in personal choice. Character doesn't reveal itself when options are limited. It shows when you have every option and still choose restraint. If absolute control landed in your hands tomorrow, would you stay steady, or would you slowly bend toward ego and excess? Marcus wasn't a saint. He was a man with enormous power trying not to let it distort him. Maybe the real question isn't whether you would be perfect. It's whether you would still respect yourself if no one was watching. Now let's clear up a common misunderstanding. When Marcus Aurelius spoke about living according to nature, he wasn't suggesting you quit your job, move to the woods, and grow vegetables off the grid. It wasn't spiritual escapism. What he meant is far less poetic and far more demanding. Living according to nature means accepting reality as it is, not as you wish it were. It means facing facts without emotional decoration. The world isn't structured around your comfort. Nature doesn't negotiate with feelings. It doesn't adjust itself to your expectations. Rain falls when it falls. Loss happens. Effort doesn't guarantee applause. And still, everything continues fulfilling its function. A tree grows as much as it can. A river flows without questioning its purpose. A predator hunts because that's what it does. None of them are waiting for approval. Meanwhile, we often freeze at criticism. We react quickly. We spend energy trying to appear impressive instead of become capable. For the Stoics, living according to nature meant fulfilling your role as human being at the highest level possible, using reason when emotion wants control, maintaining integrity when shortcuts seem easier, acting well even when nobody is watching. It's not about being cold, it's about not being ruled by impulse. Growth requires pressure. Transformation requires friction. A butterfly doesn't emerge without strain, yet it doesn't complain about the process either. Many people want results without discomfort, respect without discipline, meaning without responsibility. That doesn't align with how nature works. Marcus believed that if you are human, your function is to act like one. Rational, just, disciplined, compassionate, strong. Nature doesn't perform for an audience. It simply operates according to its design. Maybe happiness isn't found in constant stimulation. Maybe it's found in aligning your actions with your deeper responsibilities. Pleasure fades quickly, purpose sustains, and that, for Marcus, is what it meant to live in agreement with nature. The biggest problem isn't just the world, it's also you. There are different people everywhere. That's not exactly breaking news. But here's the part most people avoid admitting. Sometimes you are one of them too. It feels comfortable to say the world is full of toxic, selfish, unreasonable people, and sure, there's a plenty of that around. Stoicism just adds a less flattering layer. Nobody is completely outside this dynamic. We aren't born balanced, wise, or emotionally mature. We start out reactive, insecure, still figuring things out. Mistakes aren't the exception, they are part of the process. Marcus knew this firsthand. As emperor, he dealt constantly with political betrayal, opportunists, flattery, hidden agendas. If anyone had grounds to become bitter about humanity, it was him. Yet instead of feeding resentment, he reminded himself that human imperfection is normal. People fail. They misunderstand. They act out of fear, ego, or confusion. And yes, sometimes you do the same. This perspective isn't passive acceptance, it's clarity. You can't control other people's behavior, but you can decide how much their behavior controls yours. While many spend energy labeling others as problematic, Stoicism turns attention inward first. Not out of guilt, out of responsibility. Have you ever spoken too quickly, judged unfairly, let pride drive a reaction? Most people have. Acknowledging that doesn't diminish you, it makes you more aware. Marcus often reflected that people don't necessarily act badly out of deliberate malice. Often it's ignorance, or insecurity, or limited perspective. Under different pressure, different circumstances, you might respond poorly to. That awareness softens reactivity. Less automatic outrage, more perspective. Constant indignation can also become a convenient distraction. It's easier to critique others than refine yourself. Criticism gives quick relief. Growth takes sustained effort. Marcus wasn't aiming for sainthood. He was focused on choice. When someone acts poorly, do you mirror it or raise your own standard? Do you escalate tension or stabilize it? That's real autonomy. And another uncomfortable reality. Not every uncomfortable interaction is toxic. Sometimes someone is simply reflecting something you've been avoiding. So before labeling the world as the main problem, it's worth asking where you might also contribute to the friction. Often, the hardest person to deal with isn't your boss, neighbor, or colleague. It's the person you see in the mirror every day. There's a popular motivational line. Everything happens for a reason. Sounds reassuring. Sometimes it oversimplifies reality. Marcus would likely frame it differently. Events happen. The key question isn't always why, it's how you respond afterward. Life doesn't wait for ideal timing. Plans get disrupted, expectations collapse, loss happens, and the world keeps moving. The issue often isn't hardship itself. It's the assumption that hardship shouldn't exist. Adversity isn't a system failure, it's part of the system. Resilience develops when something actually requires resilience. Emotional strength grows when comfort disappears. Maturity tends to follow periods of uncertainty or setback. Character rarely forms in comfort. It forms in moments when no one is watching, when continuing forward requires personal decision rather than external encouragement. Marcus didn't spend time wishing difficulties away. He prepared himself mentally for their inevitability. Storms don't check your schedule. And here's something easy to overlook. You've already survived every difficult phase of your life so far. Maybe not perfectly, maybe with scars, but you made it through. That suggests a greater capacity than you usually credit yourself for. Emotional exaggeration often weighs more than the event itself. Losing something important hurts. Of course it does. But it also reveals how you rebuild. Broken trust hurts. It also sharpens discernment. Failure stings. It can also refine direction. Stoicism doesn't glorify suffering. It treats it as material for growth. Fall down, adjust, continue, quietly if necessary. Progress doesn't require an audience. Another point people resist. Difficulty isn't rare. It's normal. Avoiding it constantly delays development that eventually becomes unavoidable. Everyone wants the reward. Few want the process behind it. Repetition, frustration, uncertainty, persistence. That's always been true. For emperors, for everyone else. So, when the next challenging phase comes, immediate resistance may not be the most productive reaction. Sometimes it's simply training, the kind that shapes you in ways comfort never could. Growth rarely comes from avoiding the fall. It comes from learning how to stand back up with more stability each time. Marcus also said that having a lot doesn't mean being free. Money is good, comfort is good, financial stability makes life easier. There's no need to pretend detachment just to sound enlightened. Marcus wasn't living simply because he had no choice. He was emperor. Access to luxury, influence, and resources wasn't an issue for him. He wasn't worried about bills or basic survival. Still, he understood something many people overlook. Owning things isn't the same as being emotionally dependent on them. Wealth itself isn't the problem. Attachment is. It starts subtly. Your car becomes a symbol of identity. Your job title starts defining your worth. A new phone or a polished online image becomes a shortcut to self-esteem. Losing status begins to feel worse than losing integrity. That's where comfort quietly turns into dependence. Marcus reminded himself to appreciate what he had while staying mentally prepared to lose it. Enjoy the house, but recognize it might not always be yours. Value comfort, but don't build your identity on it. That kind of mindset creates real freedom, not purchasing power, inner stability, the ability to remain centered even if circumstances shift. Many people accumulate possessions trying to fill a gap that material things can't actually address. They invest in image, experiences, aesthetics, visibility. What often gets neglected is internal structure. A simple test. If everything external disappeared tomorrow, what part of you would remain unchanged? That question usually clarifies things quickly. Marcus wasn't against wealth. He resisted being defined by it. Character came first. Possessions stayed secondary. You can often tell when someone is overly attached by how intensely they fear losing position. If the idea of stepping down socially triggers panic, identity may be tied too tightly to external markers. That isn't success. It's refined dependence. From a Stoic perspective, real wealth is enjoying what you have without becoming psychologically captive to it. Appreciating comfort while knowing you remain whole without it. Someone with that internal balance can gain a lot or lose a lot without collapsing. Someone without it may have everything and still feel unstable. So build, earn, achieve. Just don't outsource your sense of self to things that can disappear. Ultimately, what you own will never matter more than who you become. And above all, remember, life ends. What happens before that is up to you. Let's keep this grounded. The one guaranteed outcome in life is that it ends. You, me, everyone. No exceptions. Marcus Aurelius had everything that might encourage a sense of permanence. Authority, wealth, constant validation. Yet he regularly reminded himself that life is brief and unpredictable. That wasn't pessimism, it was prioritization. When you genuinely accept that time is limited, certain distractions lose their appeal. Ego battles shrink. Status anxiety softens. Some worry stops feeling urgent. Still, many people behave as if time were unlimited. Important conversations get postponed. Personal projects wait for a better phase. Meaningful changes stay on hold. There's always a later, and later quietly becomes never. Marcus saw mortality as part of the contract, not an unexpected interruption. No extensions, no renegotiation. Remembering that helped him stay focused on what mattered while he was still here. Cause dying isn't necessarily the tragedy. Living without engagement might be. Autopilot routines, constant distraction, days blending together until years pass without much deliberate direction. Another interesting pattern. People often fear aging more than they fear living superficially. Appearance, recognition, external validation get attention. Internal development sometimes doesn't. Marcus used awareness of mortality as a compass, a reminder to invest energy where it truly counts. If something meaningful needs to be done, begin. If someone matters, express it. If something needs resolution, address it. There is no guaranteed tomorrow, only the opportunity you currently have, and eventually, external metrics fade. Career titles, follower counts, possessions. They don't define final self-assessment. What tends to remain is the sense of whether you lived with coherence and integrity. So use your time deliberately. Build something worthwhile. Become someone you respect when there is no audience. The ending is inevitable. The open question is whether it finds someone who genuinely lived or someone who kept postponing life.